Good evening. It's Saturday, the 27th of September. You're tuned in to our 10 p.m. newscast coming to you from ARIRANG's news centre in Seoul. Thanks ever so much for joining us. I'm Mark Broom. Our top story tonight, the United States is turning up the heat on South Korea and Japan to put the past behind them and hold long-overdue summit talks. Seoul has hinted that talks could happen in the next couple of months, but it continues to insist Tokyo atone for its horrific treatment of Korean women during World War II. Myung-kil reports.
U.S. Assistant Secretary of State Daniel Russel is pressuring Seoul and Tokyo to hold summit talks as soon as possible in order to foster future-oriented ties between the two countries.
Two leading democracies have a lot to talk about, and of course we see value in those discussions taking place at every level, including at the highest level.
Seoul has shown a willingness to improve ties with Tokyo, but only if the Japanese government takes action to restore the honor of Korean women forced into sexual slavery by the Japanese military before and during World War II. Observers say Japan has been refraining from actions that could upset Seoul in recent weeks in order to ease tensions. On a related regional note, Russell went on to say that North Korea's goal of simultaneously pursuing nuclear weapons and undergoing economic development was an illusion.
Hope to achieve economic growth and provide for its people is a fallacy. It is not true. It cannot be done. It will not happen.
The Assistant Secretary of State urged Pyongyang to live up to its own commitments by giving up its nuclear program. He held out prospects of a better future for North Korea if it chooses to denuclearize. Russell said the U.S. and other countries will be full partners if Pyongyang makes a decision to rebuild its economy and lay down its nuclear weapons. Myung-kil, ARIRANG News.
South Korea has asked Iran to help North Korea give up its nuclear weapons program. Seoul's Foreign Minister Yoon Byung-se made the remarks during a meeting on Friday local time with his Iranian counterpart Mohammad Javad Zarif on the sidelines of the UN General Assembly in New York City. Yoon said Iran could prove to be a good role model for North Korea if it reaches a nuclear deal with 6 major powers soon over its own nuclear program. The Iranian minister confirmed that Tehran is not engaged in any form of military cooperation with North Korea. The two ministers also discussed ways to boost bilateral ties. A high-level U.S. military official has warned that North Korea could be preparing to roll out a road-mobile intercontinental ballistic missile that could potentially threaten the continental United States. In an interview with Bloomberg, Commander of the U.S. Pacific Command, Admiral Samuel Locklear, said Pyongyang is in the final stages of fielding its KN-08 missile, which has a range of over 5,500 kilometers. He added that although the missile is not operational yet, there has been a significant pickup in activity around the missile's location. Locklear said the United States should place a very high priority on updating its missile defense system in response to road mobile ICBMs. Korean doctors will soon be able to practice their medical services in Abu Dhabi with much greater ease. The UAE has decided to grant greater recognition to those people with Korean medical licenses. Our Son Jung-in reports.
Many countries are attempting to make inroads into the United Arab Emirates medical industry. It is considered as a new golden market with its rich resources and people becoming more attentive to their health. Korea has now gotten the first jump on its competitors in Japan and Singapore. The UAE government recently decided to grant more authority to the Korean medical license in the country.
The UAE decided to upgrade the medical licenses of Korean doctors from Tier 2 to Tier 1, meaning that the license holders will be exempt from unnecessary procedures.
Korean doctors who currently need at least 8 years of clinical experience to work as a physician in Abu Dhabi will now be required to have just 3. Also, they will assume bigger roles from the assistant level to key medical staff level, in addition to earning higher salaries. Korea's Health and Welfare Ministry said the agreement reached with Abu Dhabi's health authority is expected to be implemented by the end of this year.
I had a comfortable time receiving medical treatment in Korea. The skills of the doctors were excellent, and the nurses were very kind.
Analysts say the local medical team's advanced skills and devotion to their patients were the main reasons for the change. Experts believe the groundbreaking deal between the two countries will serve as a stepping stone for Korea into other countries in the Middle East as well. 손정인, ARIRANG News.
Now, the chief of U.S. Armed Forces says U.S.-led airstrikes in Syria are damaging the control and logistics capabilities of Islamic State. Speaking at the Pentagon, General Martin Dempsey said the aerial bombardment of IS positions has made a dent in the extremist group. That said, Dempsey stressed airstrikes alone are not enough to destroy Islamic State. He says a ground campaign would both be needed in Iraq and Syria, and suggests that up to 15,000 fighters drawn from Syria's moderate opposition would be needed for a ground force in that country. Meanwhile, the US-led coalition has widened its airstrikes against Islamic State targets in Syria as part of what they're calling near continuous raids against the terrorist group. The BBC is reporting that IS fighters besieging the Syrian town of Kobane on the Turkish border have also been targeted very heavily by airstrikes over the last few hours. The United States has pledged to make another fresh effort to give a UN agency the right to regulate the internet at next month's gathering in Korea of the International Telecommunications Union. 3 US State Department officials spearheading Washington's policy on this issue say some countries want to do away with the existing multi-stakeholder approach and rather go with centralizing control over the internet. If this was the case, they say it would give governments the ability to diminish the freedom of the internet and allow them to start censoring online material. The US officials say the internet belongs to everyone, and we all have a right to participate in how it is governed. The International Telecommunication Union Conference kicks off in the southern city of Busan on October 20th and runs through November 7th. Now, thousands of doses of experimental Ebola vaccines are expected to be available over the next few months as the death toll from the latest epidemic in West Africa continues to rise with no real end in sight. The World Health Organization says the vaccines, once they are ready, could eventually be given to healthcare workers and other people at high risk of this awful disease. Although no vaccine has been clinically proven safe or effective in humans quite yet, a WHO official says testing to ensure they are not harmful to humans are already underway. Well over 10,000 doses are expected to be released by the beginning of next year. The number of deaths linked to this outbreak is now surpassed 3,000, but officials admit it could actually be even higher than that. A volcano in central Japan erupted earlier today, injuring at least 8 people and leaving more than 250 people stranded near the peak. Reports say a thick grey cloud of ash, which you can see there, rose into the sky above Mount Ontake, and a witness said small rocks were being thrown into the air along with the ash. Now, this volcano, which is located rather close to Tokyo, just 200 kilometers west, erupted completely without warning. Local authorities have told climbers, makes sense really, to avoid that area, and planes have been diverted to avoid the ash clouds. This mountain last erupted in the year 2007. Now, studies show that families that eat together generally stay together, but unfortunately, fewer Korean families have the chance or the time to eat dinner with their loved ones, and this is mainly down to their very busy work schedules. Our Song Ji-son reports.
Fathers working overtime at work while the kids take late-night classes at private academies. This has become the typical dinnertime routine for people in Korea, with families having fewer meals together. The Ministry of Health and Welfare conducted a survey on 7,000 people nationwide and found that last year, only 64% of respondents had dinner with their families 2 or more times a week. The figure has been decreasing gradually since it is 76% in 2005. By age, those in their 20s had the lowest rate at 45%, followed by teenagers, most of whom are at school during dinner time, and the elderly. By region, metropolitan areas had a slightly lower rate of 65% compared to rural areas at 67%. The survey also found that a family's income has some influence over their dinner custom. Members of low-income families had less meals together compared to those with higher salaries. Analysts said people in the lower income brackets spend more time making ends meet, meaning less time for a nice, quiet meal with their family. 송지선, ARIRANG News.
And finally, turning to the latest from the Incheon Asian Games, and it was a slightly tougher game than their previous 3, but the South Korean baseball team has qualified for Sunday's final after beating China 7-2. Their opponents will be Chinese Taipei in the final. South Korea, as we remember, routed them 10-0 earlier this week. That final is set for 6:30 p.m. Korea time on Sunday. In other action, South Korea grabbed gold in women's compound archery, outshooting Chinese Taipei 229-226. On the men's side of the same event, South Korea had to settle for a silver after losing to India. Choi Bo-min won her second gold of the day in the women's individual compound archery event. She outshot Sok Ji-hyun by a single point. Cyclist Na Aram snatched gold in the women's 28-kilometre individual time trial road cycling with a time of 37 minutes 54 seconds. And Kim Min-ji secured another gold medal for South Korea in the women's skeet event, defeating a Chinese rival by 1 point in a shoot-off. And congratulations to all those South Korean athletes there. And those are the stories we have for this hour. For more of the latest stories, don't forget to check out our website, which can be found at arirang.co.kr/news. Do enjoy the rest of your weekend. Goodbye.